Let me pull this back
Good
up.
morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are back with another FunderProTV live stream. Hope everybody is having a good day. Happy Monday to you all, and more importantly, happy Veterans Day. Here in the U.S., it's Veterans Day, so obviously, those who sacrifice, their lives, their time, their home life with their families to go protect us and our freedoms in this country is one of, if not the most honorable thing a person can do. So we want to say Happy Veterans Day to all the veterans out there, and let's look at these charts, baby. How you guys doing today? Kyron and Brian are here with me today. How you guys doing?
Hey,
I'm doing great. I like that we have the names added now. I think that's a nice addition to
There
the
you go.
channel. But doing great, doing great. We've seen a lot of or a good amount of volume coming into the markets both today and through the weekend for crypto. We've seen this bullish run. Do you guys trade crypto by chance?
not
I
anymore.
don't actively trade it, but I know I mentioned in the chat earlier. I think I want to start watching Bitcoin. It's this Funder Pro 25K account that I'm currently trading, just because obviously Bitcoin just hit a new all-time high. Here, I'll pull up the Bitcoin chart. But Bitcoin just hit a new all-time high, and I wouldn't be surprised if it keeps pushing. So it's something I want to kind of keep an eye on. I think it's trading at 80,000s now, 81,769.
Yeah.
So let's look
Floating
at the daily
to
chart.
those all-time highs. Aditya says,
This was
"Hi guys, how are you
it's
guys?
funny.
We're doing great. Hope you guys are doing great too."
This was the Bitcoin channel. I'd actually made some posts on the Funder Pro X page talking about this Bitcoin channel, kind of this massive kind of massive kind of bull flag, but we were just stuck in this channel for a while, and give us a nice little breakup retest and rip.
Was that the daily time frame? Oh yeah,
That's
exactly
the
what you're
daily chart
talking
on
about.
Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as you can see, Bitcoin pushing to new all-time highs. So yeah, I'm not going to rush into trading it right away, but it's definitely something I want to start keeping an eye on.
Yeah, and I personally don't actively trade Bitcoin as much as I just hold Bitcoin. So I've entered some positions when we were in, I believe it was like early this year when we tapped back into like 50,000. Also last year I added heavily around, I want to say November last year. It was like, I want to say it was around in 31,000 to 24. I think that was like the range. And I had added some positions, there as well. So I'm just a long-term holder of Bitcoin. And then with Trump being elected, he said that if he becomes elected, that the US will not do one thing that he feels was a big mistake, and that's selling their crypto. He said they weren't going to sell any more crypto if he becomes in office, kind of pushing his Bitcoin. Well, specifically Bitcoin, not crypto, but he said Bitcoin, kind of pushing his crypto agenda there. So I think that has a
I'm curious what your thoughts are on this, because you brought up the Trump presidency, and I was thinking about this too. And you're a gold trader, so I was curious your opinion on this. Do you think that, obviously, so a Trump presidency is bullish? He's stated he's a very pro crypto president, and the market's clearly showing that it likes that for Bitcoin. Do you think a Trump presidency is bearish for gold? My thought was kind of like, and obviously we've talked about this, we both trade we both trade technicals, not fundamentals. But from a fundamental standpoint, if he does, any of what he says he's going to do, I feel like it could be bearish for gold. Just looking at this larger, like the daily chart, it's just been such an epic run for gold. Typically, gold is like a safe haven investment for investors when there's inflation, when protect against inflation, when there's wars going on, all that stuff. So if Trump is able to get inflation under control, if he's able to get a stop to some of these wars and get things under control a little bit here, do you think that is overall a bearish fundamental catalyst for gold? What's your thoughts on that, Karen or Brian? Either one of you?
I think that we could see some bearishness, but I think overall, like we said, we kind of focus more so on the technical side of things. So if it is some bearishness that does come into the markets, because like you said, gold has been on just a massive run. And like you
Yeah.
said, it's a safe haven throughout history. So we know throughout time that gold just goes up. If you go to the weekly chart and go all the way back to the beginning of time, gold through time just goes up. And so I think that any bear move or bear run that we have, even through his presidency, I think in the long term is just a corrective structure, and price will continue
Hmm.
bullish as, inflation continues to increase, because we haven't seen or stopped, this increase or inflation crisis that we've been in more recently. They've had, the Fed has been more adamant of, did we cut rates this previous FOMC? Yeah, we
Yeah.
did.
Another quarter basis point. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So the Fed has been adamant about, not wanting to cut rates too quick because they could see inflation begin to rise up, but they also don't want to cut it too slow because then the labor markets can have an effect or a negative effect based on that. So I think that, just in time, even if Trump, with Trump's presidency, if we do see a correction, I think it'll be very short term in terms of, on a weekly, daily basis, and then we'll start to swing back into those all-time highs. I'm pretty biased on gold hitting up to this 2800 level. We just got just shy of it before we started to see a larger time frame correction. I want to say we stopped at around 2790 area
Hmm.
is where we started to see a correction. So I believe
Yeah.
that we're
It's
going to
like
continue,
2788. Yeah.
and specifically where we're at currently in the markets for gold, like we're at a daily demand zone, a key daily demand zone. Even though we have a lot of bearish volume, we're at a key level where we could see some type of smaller time frame flip to go into a larger time frame continuation of the bullish trend. So just keeping an eye on where we're at in terms of a decisive point in the markets right now. um which is actually why I took the trade that I took this morning, is just simply because, well, I didn't take a long, I took a short, but just coming off of the volume here. So if we take a look at gold, I broke this down on our weekend session, or I set it up over the weekend session. If we take a look here at gold, just on the 30-minute time frame, so you can kind of get a glimpse. We have this triple, I call it a triple bottom, but realistically, we just have like a resistance level here
Mhm.
of equal lows that price was just ranging at, I guess you could say, And so this weekend, I was really adamant about gold filling this gap to the downside, looking more so on the 4-hour time frame to fill this 4-hour demand zone to retest into this level here. Because once we broke through this level, if we take a look on the 30-minute time frame, once we broke through this level here, price pushed up, came down, created a new high. That's indicative that this is a bullish wave. But then we came down and we broke through this low here. We retested supply, and then we came down here. It might not look like it because we just closed back up into this range, but we did in fact break through this level here. So that was a key indication to me that this is going to the downside. And our next key resistance was at this 4-hour level of demand. Now, I mentioned in the group that I took a sell on gold on the smaller time frame initially late last night for us in the US. So it was like coming into pre-London session. Price was creating lower lows and lower highs. I knew we had this impulsive move to the downside, and this was my 4-hour level of resistance that I was looking for price to target. So when price came down here, we broke through these lows in this area, and I don't use trend lines, but this is just how I can use to identify the
Mhm.
area that we broke through. So price pushed through that level, we broke through, we retested back into this supply zone. I went ahead and took my shorts here, anticipating the London volume to continue pushing us to the downside um within here, and then just looking to target that 4-hour demand zone area. And you can see that we got near my take profit. Mind you, I'm asleep throughout this whole thing. Then we get just barely liquidated. We had a liquidity grab. That previous, or the current 4-hour candle had pushed through the previous 4-hour candle's high. So we had, and it looks different on TradingView in terms of like candle structure, but this candle had closed bearish on TradingView, and we had just barely pushed over that previous 4-hour candle high, which is where my stops was set, and then we ran to the downside. So today, the trade that I took this morning is after the 8 o'clock candle. You can see we had a ton of volume in the 8 o'clock candle that pushed through that 4-hour demand zone. So if you look at it on the daily time frame, gold is pushing into a daily key demand. And why I say it's a daily key demand, because you can see price created a high, created a low, created a high, created a low, pushed up, created this huge impulsive move, and now is retesting this demand where that key low is at, which is why I say on the larger time frame we could potentially see a smaller time frame, or excuse me, on the smaller time frame we could potentially see a smaller time frame flip here to continue into a larger time frame direction. But all I was looking for was that daily demand zone to get tapped into. So I mentioned in the group, and in my group this morning, I was looking for a continuation sell on gold. If you take a look here on the 1-minute time frame, since we had so much volume, I had to use my high volume scale in entry. We had so much volume, but price was creating lower lows and lower highs. So we created this low, we created a high, created a low, created a high. And when price came through and created this low here, I mentioned in the group, if we get a retest back into this level here, I'll look to take sales down, likely targeting the break below the low. And how I close my trade is at the first bullish candle after a breakthrough my low. So I ended up with like a 1 to almost a little bit over. I had a little bit better stop loss. It was like a 1 to 2 risk to reward on this trade as this candle began to pull back after breaking through my low. Just looking for that continuation of the volume to the downside, to that daily demand zone. You can see now, even now, we just broke through another key low here. If you take a look at this low, it was broken by this low here. So now we could potentially see one more correction back up and then a continuation down. Price doesn't have to do it. You can see it's just pushing down into that zone now. But essentially, I just scaled in based on a larger time frame volume to a larger time frame structure, based on this, this smaller time frame here.
Yeah, nice.
Let me
That would have
see if
been
I could.
that's tough tough stop out there. Would have been a nice trade. It's
Yeah.
always tough when it stops you just by a couple ticks and then
Yeah. Well
proceeds
explained.
further.
Well explained, though.
Yeah. It was definitely a rough one to wake up to. It's like, dang, close but no cigar, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
We were able to still capitalize. And this is what I think that is important. That trade was a 1-to-1 or 1-to-4 risk to reward, right? But it was a losing trade. So I lost 1%. This other trade I took was a 1-to-2 risk to reward trade, and I also took it at 1%. So risk management is so important because though I had a losing trade and a winning trade and only a 50% win rate, I still am net positive on the day,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so that risk and risk to reward is important. And so we can't really just, be worried about the L's. They come and they go. It was an unfortunate L for sure. We could have definitely been at more of a, 6% on the day rather than up 1%, but uh it wasn't a bad move. Um I ended up taking it on one of my funded accounts there. So, not a bad day, not a bad trade. You can see that this is just continuing to the downside here, and it's likely that we could potentially get another, correction and continuation down for gold. But anything you guys looking at either for the week long term, or anything that you were interested in particularly today?
Yeah. I think we're in a tricky spot here for me, at least. Right. I mostly trade NAS. We are, trading up at all-time highs, which always can be a little bit tricky. I don't have a lot of levels up here. Like I
Mhm.
said, or like I've mentioned a bunch of times, I use an hourly level system. And when you're at all-time highs, there's no previous data to work from, right? So you don't have those levels necessary to work with.
Mhm.
So it's a little tricky up here. I want to take it slow this week and see what happens. If we're going to start to see a pullback, I want to let that develop a little bit. I don't need to be the first one in, but I also don't want to fight this trend. So if we're gonna keep trending, I will. I'm not opposed to longs. Interesting though, we got like a gap up. This is NAS, so kind of like some rangy action. Like we gapped up, had a nice push up, and then kind of held the overnight lows, and we pushed higher. But now we're starting to get a little bit of a dump on the open here. But yeah, so I'm waiting to see how it plays out. I have a level. Let me see if I look at Thinkorswim where this level is on NAS. I'm a little bit behind marking my charts up on Trade Locker.
Yeah, and I personally like I don't what is this Nas 100?
Yeah, so I have
Yeah.
a level right. We just almost tagged it.
Is this gap open on, all markets? I see it's on Trade Locker, sometimes it's different. Is this gap
Yeah,
on
let
TradingView as
me. I
well?
think there is a gap on my Thinkorswim as well.
Got you, got you. I only asked
Yeah, there
because I
is.
generally
Yeah, there is. No, let's see. On my Thinkorswim, we opened. Yeah, it's a little bit different because see how we opened above the highs.
Mhm,
On Thinkorswim, we opened like within the highs of Friday. It looks like we opened a little bit lower, but it's like a
mhm,
gap from this last 5-minute bar right here. Like there's a gap from here to here on Thinkorswim,
mhm.
but like the opening was below Friday's high.
Got you, got you,
Like
got
it
you.
looks like we opened somewhere right around this like 21,165 on my Thinkorswim.
Got you, got you, got you. I mention it
Um,
because me personally, I always look for those gaps to get filled. Like they
yeah,
generally come back and get filled.
yeah, that's it. So we talked about. I showed you guys Edgeful last week, and I know Sam told me he put some stats. He sent us some stuff that he found that he went on and got an Edgeful account. But there's a gap fill report on here, Kyron, that
Mhm.
is it's pretty cool to check out.
Oh
Uh,
man, I gotta check out the what is it called? Edgeful.
yeah,
Sam
yeah.
had
So
mentioned
you can go to
something
the gap fill
nice
report.
and
I'm looking
different.
at NQ. But it tells you how often a gap up gets filled. 62% of the time. How often a gap down gets filled? 73% of the time.
Mm,
Um, Gap fill trades are definitely high probability trades. And you can, like I said before, you can always dial this down to a bunch of different things to look at these numbers differently, right? Numbers go down a little bit if you look a little bit further out.
mhm.
If you go 5 years out. But still, I mean, it still happens more than 50% of the time, even 5 years out, right? And you can do it by weekday. So if you are, but yeah, if you're someone, yeah. So if you look, this gap filled by weekday. So looking at Monday, so right, if we gap up on Mondays, 76% of the time that gets filled. If we gap down 67% of the time, so Wednesdays a little less. So yeah, I mean, you can look at something like a Friday gap downs get filled to the upside nearly 80% of the time. Um,
Mm. Got you, got you, got you.
yeah, this is just showing you guys that again. Just some of those reports, pretty cool, pretty insightful.
What is everybody trading today? I know we have some people in the chat that like to trade Nas. Some people trade gold. I think I seen like 1 or 2 US 30s last week as well. What is everybody watching this week?
Yeah, Raton, I sent a comment back on the chat. I don't know if you saw it or not, but I will. I'll definitely mention this to the team. I'm assuming you mean on our website. Oh yeah, on site. Yeah. So it looks like that just needs to be added. I know C Trader is relatively new for us still, so I will make sure that they are made aware of that. Though. How about
Long
you,
on
Brian? You
Nas,
watching
okay.
anything?
Of course, I favor gold, but I took a really good short
Do you
earlier
want to share your
today.
screen and show us?
Yeah, I can do that. Get all the junk off.
Yeah. So Kyron, my Nas front ran my level a little bit here, so I'm still hands off, waiting for
Mhm.
reactions at that white line there. Wow, I just looked at US 30. It's pumping.
The King said the 30th or September 30th low swept at 26.2465. Short-term buys at 26.25, targeting 26.40. So 26. Let
Whew.
me see.
Look at US 30 right now.
Oh my goodness. And gold
We
is
are
is just is just
ripping.
selling to the downside here.
Wow.
Just a
Isn't
lot
it?
of volume. A lot of volume.
Very so if you guys have heard me talk about, like, when I'm trading, I watch, the 4 major US indexes of
Mhm.
SPX, NAS, US 30, and then there's also the Russell, which is small cap stocks. That's on an option to trade on Forex. So I don't watch that Forex actively, um yeah, what I'm finding interesting right now is the correlation between the indexes. Like, there's some pretty wild divergence.
Mhm.
You have US 30 absolutely ripping, pushing to new all-time highs. And SPX and NAS are both pretty flat. So it's just an interesting divergence. It used to be a thing. This used to be back in the day. The indexes used to trade pretty in correlation with each other. Like, if you were
Mhm.
watching something on SPX or NAS or US 30, like, they would move very similar in a sense. Like, the stock market as a whole would be moving similar in a sense. But there's
Mhm.
a lot of divergences and differences that have been going on, especially over the last, like, probably 6 months, where it's like US 30 will rip and NAS will dump, and, like, you get a lot of different things. So I don't know if it's investors kind of cycling their money from one index to another, but it's been an interesting thing to watch, the crazy divergences that we've had if you're an index trader.
Yeah, and I personally used to look at like the SPX and NAS 100, and all of them were correlating. And so for you to say that
Mhm.
they're starting to diverge, I kind of started to see something similar of, gold and the DXY, or the dollar currency
Mm.
index. There'll be times where the dollar is relatively bullish and gold is, bullish as well. And generally they will move inversely of each other, as we'll see the dollar go up, EUR/USD would go down, and we would see some type of confluence over to gold. But more recently, especially as we've been in these all-time highs, gold has kind of been respecting its own structure, its own time. Now, there are times where we could see that, like for instance, right now, the dollar is pumping up and gold is now selling to the downside with volume. So I do like to have those kind of same confluences there to match up, the volume in terms of direction, but it's not all the time that we see them, I guess you can say, move, in coordination with one another. And more so
Mhm.
recently than as of, than in the past, I would say definitely.
Yeah, I'm keeping an eye on NAS right now. As I just mentioned, we got the very strong US 30 strength. SPX is holding up. It is currently right now testing its opening print, getting above its opening print. And NAS came and spiked through my level that I have here. So I'm keeping an eye on this. I'd like to see it get back up above this level and then give us some sort of retest from above that holds, that I can maybe look for a trade. Brian, I'm going to throw you up here.
Sure. Yeah, I love talking about gold.
Sorry, Brian, I covered your face as soon as I threw you out here. I just had to show Sam's comment here. Sell the house and go long.
Well, what's he referring to?
I don't know, maybe probably US 30. If there's something I was going to sell my house and take longs on right now, I think that'd be the one. But
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I want to go all in gold right now, short the whole damn thing. I love gold though. It's widely seen as a hedge against inflation and depreciating currencies when you read about it,
Mhm.
and it doesn't rely on any specific what do they call, issuer or government.
Mm.
I like it because I really don't like to read a lot about fundamentals, but I like to know about that on gold, and I think that's one of the things that attracted me to it early on. Um, I like reading about it, and I like looking at the technicals, and I like it when they match up to the fundamentals. But earlier today I was talking about a trade that I did when it was breaking out of my screen large enough for you guys to see it.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
good.
We're all kind of new to this, especially me on sharing this thing.
Yeah, no,
Um,
you're good.
on the 4 hour, what I was looking at was this a little bit older of a consolidation period, and I was interested in the break of that. Well, not the break of it, excuse me, but I was interested in it returning down to that zone. And what I was tracking was on the 15-minute and the 5 minute. So here's that zone I was wanting it to go back down to, but basically about right there. So I was tracking inside this zone, and when this big candle came down right there, I jumped into the market. It came in, did a little retest, and I jumped in right there at 26.65, pretty much. And I took that short, knowing it was going to go down here, and I took out a profit. I did not expect all that return down there. So, I was fully out when this guy started happening. Those things, I see those things bounce up equally. So I'm not greedy when it comes to taking profits. I like to take profits. I told you guys this when I first met you. I'm very mathematical about it. I like to take partial profits out almost like in quarters. So I kind of go 25, 50, 75, 100, I'm out. And I am long past the days of regret that I didn't let a trade run until it was completely invalidated. Sometimes I might let 10% of my trade run until it's invalidated, but I usually mathematically, I seem to collect more when I do it my traditional way. So, I'm fully out around here. When it got to that end of that zone, I was afraid we might experience a bounce,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I wanted out at that point. And again, well, I'd have to scroll way back to, so you see this here?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to repeat of that. So,
Oh, okay. In terms of the structure. Yeah, I see.
yeah. And even if just to be scared about that, how far are we out from the election discussions? How far are we now, and how far in are we on the dollar fixing itself and inflation and all that? So and another thing people learn about me is I play it very conservatively. I'm very mathematical about my lot sizes. I'm very mathematical about my take profits, especially my stop losses. I'm really don't favor exit points like the last swing high or the last swing low. I've tried that. It just doesn't suit my personality. Gold, again, I talk about it. I see a lot of repetition in it. That's just the humanistic side of it that I feel. That led me to always just stay, within, if pips wise, I might go 30 to 40 back. It's really more of a math thing. I know how much gold pulls back. I know when it over pulls, a lot of times it doesn't come back and retest or correct itself. So I stay out. But I will get back in a trade. So if I feel like my stop was too soon, I'll accept it. If it comes back to my buy or my sell zone, I'll go right back into it.
So that makes me think. This is a question I was asking myself, and I'm curious what you guys think. What do you think is more important, your trade entry, or your trade management? I think I know my opinion on this, but I'm curious what you guys think.
Knee-jerk reaction is my management.
I think management is definitely important because you can have a great entry and then manage the position wrong, don't close at a certain time, and then lose. But for me, like, my management is kind of the same in terms of every trade that I take, but it's more so important for me, I guess you can say, for my entry. And why I say my entry is because if something moves too far from my entry point, I just won't take that trade, and so even if the management is the same, if it drastically changes either my risk to reward, or like if it changes, let's say it goes from being a 1 to 4 risk to reward trade to maybe like a 1 to 1.5, based off of missing the entry, if it's too much volume, I'll let it go and just simply wait for an additional entry, because for me it becomes a quote unquote riskier trade. Even though it's a high probability move, we already missed a good portion of the profits that I would make, and then at that point, your stop loss it just, for me, it comes down to my entry, because in terms of my management, it's all exactly pretty much the same.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm with you, Brian. I think management is more important personally. If you look at something, your management, right, combined with your risk management, right, your risk management combined with your trade management. But obviously there's a million different ways to do it. But I'm a believer in management being the same, and I'm the same way, Brian, where I'll move my stops to break even relatively quickly, but I've like no problem taking a reentry if if I get stopped and the trade still shows signs that it's going to do what I thought it might do. So but yeah, I think too. You guys seen the trading chicken on Instagram?
Yes.
Top firm kid, right?
Yes.
I think that's like one of the things to me that like shows you it's like it really doesn't actually matter why you enter a trade. It's more about like, is your risk managed, and did you manage the trade well? All right, like so, like did you hold it good? Like was your risk
I agree.
and I think that's like my. I've always sort of thought that, but I think the trading chicken is what confirms it for me that trading is more important.
Trades on FX says, is trading all about risk management? And trading is all about, risk management. Like you can't continue to be successful long term in trading if you don't manage your risk, because it takes one trade. And I've seen it happen to dozens of people, like where you'd be profitable for 3, 4, 6 months, and then in a span of 1 month, or one bad trading week, you lose all of that profit that you made. So it comes really heavily down to risk management. Like in order to be long-term successful in this game, you have to understand risk management. Whether you want to be riskier on certain accounts than others, that's up to you, but you do need to have a kind of a risk plan associated, because at the end of the day, you want to have chips in the game. You need to still have chips to play the game. So in order to save your chips, you kind of have to manage your risk. I always think about trading as um when I enter a trade, is how much am I willing to lose. I don't think about how much I'm trying to make on a trade, because essentially the charts and the structure will handle that. I can't say I want to make a 4% on this trade and I'm only taking it at 1%, but it only offers a 1 to 2 risk to reward. So how I go about it is, how much am I willing to lose on this trade? And I generally stay kind of consistent at 1%, depending on what account I'm on. Funded accounts, 0.5 to 1%. It just depends on both the trading environment of the structure of the markets, and then kind of how I feel personally as well. But yeah, risk management, you guys can kind of touch on it. Yeah, I think trading is all about a good portion of trading. Half the battle is risk management for sure.
The best traders are the best losers.
Yeah.
You manage your losses, right? You manage your losses, you're good.
Yeah.
They say anybody can enter a trade and turn a profit, but it's how quick are you going to not lose it?
And then just the consistency. In order to see consistent growth, you kind of have to take in order to get enough data on your trading strategy, you kind of have to take consistent trades, in terms of how I see it, in terms of risk management, because you want to understand what your actual P&L is, your actual profit loss, your actual win rate, things of that nature. And it can be inconsistent if you take one trade at 50% of your account, the other trade at 1%. You can't really see if what it is that you're doing is working, or is it because you had a higher lot size in a particular trade that performed well, I guess you can say, because it comes down to long-term consistency. That's what I think is important.
And consistency is all it equates to your probability, right? It creates consistent probability.
Yeah.
And that's it. Kyron, I don't know if you did an AMA, and I did an AMA with FunderPro and Gary and Christian, and I was speaking a lot about probability. I believe in that so much, because I believe a lot in back testing, because if if you're not consistent, you can't figure out if your strategy works or not, if you're bouncing all over the map.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's hugely on probability. Like one of the classes, it's funny that you say that, because one of the classes that I didn't know I would enjoy as much as I did when I was in high school was AP statistics, which deals only in probabilities. So, and once I understood that that's what it is with the markets, for instance, Tyler, if you don't mind, could I share my screen here?
Yeah.
So I personally don't react based on how I feel. I react based on how the
Mhm.
markets move. So if I understand that if we come into this 4 hour level of demand here, kind of like how you mentioned, there's a probability, a greater probability that we can see a larger time frame reversal from this level, which is likely why you went ahead and took your profits at this area, because you understood the probability of, potential reversal at this larger time frame level here, as well as I understand that the probability of, gaps getting filled to the downside is high. Kind of Tyler mentioned a little bit about gold. I think you said on Fridays. I don't know what the exact statistics was,
Yeah,
but
I was actually
it
looking
was
at
like
NAS.
70. Oh,
While
okay,
you're
okay.
while you're talking, I can pull up the gap fill report on gold so we can get some data on it.
Yeah, and it's no worries. I was just saying, but it comes down to understanding probability. So like we don't react based off of what we think the market's going to do. We react based off of what the markets do. I know that is a probable chance that we could potentially see a reversal off this area. Now, I also know that in order to actually see a reversal from this level, there's some technical things on the smaller time frame that need to happen first before we can start to see this probable move to the upside. And so trading is all about probabilities and understanding, what are the chances of this happening? If we get here to this point in the markets, then what? I always look at it as a if then. If this happens and we move into this area, then we could potentially see a flip. If we see a flip, what would that be on the markets? It would be, a creation of a new high, a new higher low, new higher high, and then we start to trend bullish. But yeah, I just think that it's definitely heavily wrapped around probabilities, and why, you know, the best thing about trading is you don't have to be, win 50% of your trades. You could still be profitable and only win 40 to 20, 30% of your trades, being that you have a high risk to reward setup or a high risk to reward strategy. So my average on my strategy is an average of a 1 to 3 risk to reward. So that means I can lose 3 trades and it'll only take 1 trade to make all of that back. Similar to what we kind of seen today. I took 1 L early this morning and lost 1%, but then made 2% on another trade with a 50% win
Mhm.
rate in today's total. So the beauty about trading is you don't have to be right all the time. You don't even have to be right majority of the time. They say some of the best traders only right about 60% of the time. So now it comes down to being able to, have that I'm not gonna say high risk to reward, because I think 1 to 2, 1 to 3 is a solid risk to reward. But then you have days where, like today, if we hold, you get those 1 to 8s, 1 to 9. So the big plays do come, but just consistently stacking, those, I guess not smaller or higher probability chance moves, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Let's see. Golden Oz has gone deep down thanks to the fish. Yeah, Cam, the fish. For you guys, so you guys can have a little context on this. We had Cam went fishing last week. You guys will meet Cam. I think Wednesday he'll be on. He went fishing last week and he found he or not found. He caught a fish and the fish told him that last week was going to be a profitable week, and it was a beautiful week, and it's continuing into this week as well. So yeah, the fish. We definitely have the fish to thank for all this, additive volume into the markets.
Kyron, so check out pull up if you can NAS and US 30. I was
Gotcha.
mentioning
I got it
about
up here.
how we've seen a lot of the divergences recently.
Did this just happen?
So yeah, so
Oh, we filled
like
that
look, so
gap.
this is NAS, right? NAS is open and it's just dumping. And then and if you pull up US 30,
Let me see.
it's I mean we looked at it earlier, it's still ripping, right? So like it's and it's still it's still strong. So
Oh, it's still
it's
strong.
been
So you
interesting.
talking about him moving inversely, essentially?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
got you. Yeah. And that, Nas wasted no time filling that gap to the downside there.
Mhm.
And I couldn't tell you why gaps generally get filled, but they do. We've seen the same thing. I was able to, well, I missed the move last week that happened for EUR USD when we had that gap move to the downside that got filled. And it's essentially all that I was looking for, for EUR USD last week took shorts in this area, seeing the market shift on the smaller time frame, closed, around break even, a little bit of profit, and then we seen one more move up, and then that election night, we seen that drop to the downside and that gap get filled. But these plays for me, I just in the past have just been almost gimme plays, like being able, I know that this gap is going to get filled. So it's just a matter of when the structure is going to be ready to fill said gap. We had an impulsive move on this 15-minute candle. So how I would see it, as soon as this low gets broken here on the smaller time frame, looking for some type of correction for a continuation to just fill that gap to the downside. And since we had so much volume, it's like you got to dial down to like the 1 minute time frame. You can see we had a break below this low here, push back up into this area, push down, correction back up. This would be like a likely candle that I would look for sell positions off of, stops above, and just target literally that gap fill play to the downside, just to take out that low. And I think Cam had a trade he had his entry from up top here, but his trade was literally to fill this gap to the downside. So you can see he just came up on take profit there. But just those gap fill plays, man, I use those as like, it's almost, if the market's open with a gap in the week for me, it's like, all right, I got a guaranteed like dub almost. Like, I don't want to say a guaranteed dub, but that's how I feel when I go into it, because I know, all right, there's a great chance that this gets filled. Let's not miss it. Last week I missed it on EU, which was a bummer, because the volume that we had coming off of that gap fill to the downside was just really immense. Not that I would have been able to time it, just because of, the election and what what was released at the time of this drop. But it was just a beautiful move to the downside. And you got to understand, the larger time frame has been in this bearish wave within this move here. So since, the end of September, this has just been relatively in this bearish wave. And so what we got was, if you look at it like on a daily time frame, we have an impulsive move to the downside, which is just this strong move to the downside. We didn't really see any correction. And then we have a corrective move. And how I determine what an impulsive move and a corrective move is, it just comes down to the volume. So we've seen that we had a strong push to the downside, and then price tries to push back, and it just does not have enough strength. In how I see it, doesn't have enough strength to even give us a full correction and then a continuation down. And another way you can look at impulsive moves versus corrective moves is just in terms of like how many candles. So for instance, this is an impulsive move. I would consider this a corrective move, but it's based on a larger time frame structure, which is why we got to move to the downside. So let me give a better example of like an impulsive move and a corrective structure. This, to me, impulsive move here. So this bullish wave is an impulsive move up. Then we have our correction move. You can literally count out the candles of how long it would take to make this move to the upside versus this move to the downside. And this correction move is much slower to the downside, and it doesn't even correct it a full 100%. I know Sam talked about how he uses fibs. I don't really use fibs, but it didn't give a full 100% correction. And so just, being able to capitalize off of that. So gold, if you don't mind me breaking down what I think next for gold,
Yeah,
I'm
go ahead.
really interested in where we're at currently, right? So I don't look to fight against this volume here. The previous 4-hour candle just closed that is an extremely bearish 4-hour candle within the session time. So I wouldn't be looking for any, longs today. If anything, for me to go long, there's some conditions that would have to happen. We would need a 4-hour candle to close bullish in this level. So I would need a 4-hour candle to close bullish. I wish I could draw it out here. I probably can. Let me see. So let's do it like this. Where's the settings? And we can edit it to not extend right. And then we're going to make it solid. And then we're going to use like a trend line here. So I would want to see a 4-hour candle close bullish on the smaller time. And then the next 4-hour candle is where I would look to take a possible entries on a potential pullback within that 4-hour candle there in this pullback wick. And how that would look on the smaller time frame is we would start to see price come into this structural level. And then on the smaller time frame, we'll get a smaller time frame shift. So we would see price start to create higher highs and higher lows. The 4-hour candle essentially would close bullish here. We potentially see a break of that high, a retest back into demand on the new 4-hour candle, bottom wick, holding this demand zone here, and then that continuation to the upside on the start of that new 4-hour candle after a previous 4-hour candle bullish closure. That is the only circumstance where I would look to buy gold. In terms of selling gold, I don't really like necessarily selling into this resistance that we're at, but if we do start to see a steeper correction, we start tapping into resistance here or up here after that potential bullish move, then I'll look for sell positions from there. As of right now, ending on a positive day, so I don't really want to add any more positions, especially if we're at this key area of interest where we could potentially see, obviously price with so much volume that we have now, we could see just a slight correction and a continuation down to break whatever the low is. And if price does break through this strong daily low, this daily key low here, then I'll reevaluate the structure from there, because we could potentially see it continue to the downside. But I definitely am interested in where we're at on just like based on the larger time frame in the daily. And I think that this is going to have a good effect on what we could see for the rest of the week, depending on how we react at this area here. The previous weekly, we're coming off of a previous weekly bearish closure, and like you mentioned, Tyler, there's no real resistance on this weekly time frame until we get to like here in this level. So if we break through this level, a push to the downside, at least to like within here. Oh man, let me extend this back. And let's go to the 4-hour time frame and see if we can see the resistance at this level. Yeah. So this would be like an area of interest. This would also be an area of interest if we do in fact break through this daily low. But this is not as strong of an area of interest for me, because on the daily and the weekly time frame, this is just clean price action into this area right here where we have some consolidation and some trouble breaking. So for me, it just comes down to how we react in this current area. But I just wanted to, kind of break down what I was looking for, or my
Right.
next possible moves for gold.
You guys, you want to back up for a second to that impulsive move you were talking about?
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, and Tyler, you too. I just wanted you guys' opinion, because Kyron, you were talking about that, and it got me thinking that when you look at an impulsive move, the move tells you basically when the imbalance between buyers and sellers is really strong. However, what about participation from the institutional side during an impulsive move? Either of you guys have an opinion on that, or is there something in the chart or candlesticks that you can see that says there is or is not heavy institution participation during that move? I always see it as a buyer seller stretch, but
Yeah, I mean, I can't say that I have anything specific that I look for that I'm like, oh, this is institutional activity. That's just not something that I use in my trading. I think institutions, a lot of times, like you think about it, like accumulation and distribution, where I think institutions are kind of when you're seeing price kind of hold, as us as technical traders, we would describe it as prices, potentially holding support, where it's kind of consolidating at a support level. I think a lot of times that's institutions that are starting to accumulate, right? And so they're buying, but they're not buying enough to make the price go higher. They're just like slowly starting to build their positions until then eventually, it starts to pop. And so I look at it more of like an accumulation and distribution, which then distribution would be the same thing, but you're at the high end, right? And they're starting to sell, but they're selling slowly to just kind of scale out of their position so they don't, dump the market. And so yeah, I kind of just look at it when you're talking about the market as a whole, and just like a series of accumulation, trend, and then distribution and correction, basically, right? So I don't have anything necessarily like specific that I'm like, oh, I look at this one thing for institutional buying, but I just kind of think that's how it's done.
Got
I don't know
you.
if that necessarily answers your questions. I guess that's just my thoughts on it.
Yeah, and I personally don't actively watch, institutional positions or where they liquidate their positions at
Mhm.
personally. I always anticipate, like, for instance, I knew this weekend that we would see an impulsive move to the downside simply based off of this price action and price holding through this low here. So I knew that off a market open, it would be something that I would look for an impulsive move down to at least, I kind of mentioned it last week, to at least test let's go back to the 1 hour, this level here. So at the very least, we would see some type of impulsive move to fill here before we started to see some type of rejection, simply based off of how and where we were at price then. Like, we had a correction, we had a smaller time frame shift, we to an or so we retested an area, then had a smaller time frame shift, and just been holding these lows with this huge gap to the downside. How I see it is price try to push down here, reject it, pushes down, rejects it, pushes down, and it's just squeezing and squeezing and squeezing. You kind of see this
Uh-huh.
similar with like patterns that it look like this, where you would see something like this and price gets to this area, and then you'll see
Right.
either an explosion up or to the downside. And for instance, today we saw that move to the downside. But when price begins to squeeze like this, that's when I generally expect an impulsive move in either direction.
I just took a stab at a NAS long. We are currently,
You going long?
yep. See if we can catch the bottom here, Brian.
I'm rooting for you.
But yeah, so we're right now we just bounced off of Friday's low. I also have an hourly level. I don't have it marked on Trade Locker, but we have one of my levels down here too. So taking a stab long, seeing if we can get back up and work our way back up towards Friday's high or today's opening print. Obviously, if you're looking at the 5-minute chart today, NAS is a downtrend. So this is, you could say this is against the trend type of trade, and I could be trying to catch a falling knife here. But if you look at the larger time frame structure, we're obviously still extremely bullish. So
Mhm.
I wouldn't be shocked if today gives us one of those V patterns on NAS, where we got the harsh spike down here for the first 30-40 minutes, and then we rally back up to the opening print or higher. So we'll see. We'll
Yeah, and
see.
it
We'll see.
it
We'll see.
definitely is reacting bullish off of the previous 1 hour demand candle that started for the, kind of break of that Friday high. Was this Friday high or was this last night that this high was created?
Yeah.
This morning
So
that this high was created.
here,
So the daily
I'm on the
high, I guess you
5-minute
say.
chart here. So we have the Friday high here, and then the Friday low. This is, let's see. Hold on.
If you take a look at, like, let's say the 1 hour time frame, you can kind of see that 1 hour candle that it is flipping off of in that demand
Yeah.
zone there. I think that that's a nice position in terms of, like, entry, your stop loss, take profit. I think that that is a nice entry. It comes down to, the Nas is going to give us that flip right there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. We'll
early
see.
on,
Yeah.
it's good. That's a good indication of volume though that you got off of that reaction. I generally like to get in my trades and they, push towards profit
Mm-hmm.
initially. Just if it can close and continue pushing, I think that that would be solid.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see what happens.
On the flip of that,
And
I'm
like
looking
this
at
area
a
here, if you
puff.
look at kind of like this area here on the hourly,
Mm.
we've seen support here before, right? So we'll see. We'll see how she plays out.
I'm looking at the time of day here and watching gold. On the 15-minute, sellers are still winning. It's still very
Mhm.
bearish. And so I'm honestly looking to get back in it if I see the right price action. So I'm looking at particular price action. If it bounces higher right now, I'm looking at the 5, zooming in there, like 26, if anybody's listening and interested in
No,
gold.
I'm looking at it as well.
Do you want
But
to
like,
throw your screen on again, Brian?
sure. And I'm also looking at the fact that, we don't have CPI till Wednesday. This thing could just bounce around. So I'm analyzing all the price action at the moment too.
Yeah, no worries. I know it's a balancing act, right? Because like you're trying to trade and watch the charts, and the comments they listen to each other. And yeah, it's
You want to share your screen? Oh, I just missed my trade. Tyler, how could you?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I think this is. It's also, I don't know about you guys, but I have about 6 feet of real estate on my monitors, and so I can have several types of charts. That, like, which one am I showing? Which one am I showing everybody? I believe it's this one here. That's one I was on. I don't know if you guys are like me, but it's like I have a drawing chart, and then I have high time frames, low time frames.
Mm-hmm.
I hate.
Yeah.
I know. Some people don't have the ability to have multiple monitors and more real estate like that. But when you can finally get to that point in your trading, it does help a great deal. I don't like to flip around between screens too much. I like to just look left, look right, and see everything.
Yeah, I feel you on that.
Yeah. So what it's doing right now here, I think. Oh, okay. I already did put a line in there. That's around 26.20. So right up in. I think I said 26, 24. Yeah. So if it comes back up to here, if I see it reject again, right up in there around 26, 24, I want to see it come up to 25. But if it rejects off that, then I may enter around 26, 24. But at the same time, if it's not going to go back up, and I see it get past this candle from approximately 35 minutes ago, I may just go in if the right setup is there. I mean, this is an example of how I'm watching candlestick formation and monitoring volume and momentum. I think it's going to play. I think it may shoot back down, but I really think it's going to bounce in here for a while. It could just consolidate for a while before it does anything. Certainly not. I'm not going to take it to the upside. That's for sure. Kyron, do you have any opinion on it going to the upside? You stressed a little while ago, you wouldn't go long. I wouldn't either, but I guess I would ask you, what do you think as far as how far that could pull back before it goes short again?
In terms of where you actually kind of have mentioned it, actually, I could show my chart here. If that makes it a little easier. So I think where the areas that you mentioned are both good areas, being able to see a continuation to the downside, especially through this low. If you look at it, the previous 1 hour just closed bearish. So what you would anticipate is this top wick, kind of similar to what I mentioned for that 4 hour, this top wick to be formed within that structure, and then that continuation down to fill the previous 1 hour candle wick to the downside, as volume is just continuing to push us to the downside. Me personally, I would, if I were looking to short gold, it would be off of this level. So for me to feel comfortable, I want to see it retest off of this level. You get a 5-minute bearish candle and then a continuation down. If not, and we break through this 1 hour candle low, a retest into this level now for a continued move to the downside. But I can't time up when this move will flip bearish. If it does, or flip bullish, excuse me. If it does, then it comes down to where's our most immediate levels of resistance at. So for me, we have clean price action until back into this level here, where we broke out this morning, and last night the breakout that I was looking at are areas that we could potentially pull back to. But just coming off of the previous 4 hour candle volume, this is not something that I would be looking to fight, and so that's why I think that your scaling position would be a great trade, a great opportunity to kind of ride this momentum of the current daily and volume from the session. But yeah, in terms of where we could pull back to it on a larger time frame or on a smaller time frame, this would be my first area of interest for a potential pullback. And then 26.47 after, and for that to flip, for it to
Hmm.
flip coming off the volume we had, it would take some 4-hour candles closing bullish. Like this wouldn't happen in one singular, one
Yeah,
singular move. It would definitely take some time, and the smaller time frame structure would, kind of identify that. But in terms of, like I said, your shorts, I think that's a good possible play there for a move to the downside. I definitely would be looking to potentially take like a 0.25 since I already utilize my risk on the day. I wouldn't want to risk nothing crazy, but still to be able to execute on the setup, even if I just paper trade it, to kind of stay fresh on my possible scale-ins. I think that's
for sure.
You got to
that's
get
a
on
good.
that 25K challenge. There you go. That's what you got to do.
Yeah, no, facts.
You
Since
know
I
what I
didn't
mean?
take it,
That's the time to start.
yeah,
You took a trade
yeah,
on the funded account. Now you lock that one in, then you move to the challenge, right?
yeah, 110%. And that's kind of why I do that, so I don't over leverage on one, because the account that I took, I took this sell on like at a 0.5% risk last night for that move to the downside, since I wasn't going to be able to monitor it. But then,
Hmm.
we figured this is a 25K account. My funded account is where I took this move to the downside, which is a 200K funded. I have two 200K funded accounts, but I only traded one of them. And so I made, a 1%. I took it at 1%, made 2%, which is like a 4K profit for the day. So
Can't
this is
complain
just
about
kind of
that. You cannot complain about a 4K in the day, baby.
yeah.
Victor Jones Jr. FTC HEA. Show some love to my brother, man.
Oh,
I gotta say that with an accent.
that's a
My
friend of
brother,
mine.
man. I don't know what
Yeah.
that means. I don't know what FTC.
Nah, I got you. So FTC is my brand for the Culture FX, and
Oh, okay,
that's a
okay,
member of
okay.
mine,
All
friend of mine,
right.
close friend of mine.
I like it. I like
Cool.
it. Shout out for the Culture FX. Make sure you follow our boy Kyron, baby.
Yeah, so that's what I'm looking for. Appreciate you. Shout out to you, Vic. We gotta meet up sometime. It's been a minute since I've seen you. Yeah.
Yeah, I can throw my screen back up here and just
Yeah,
see
for
if this
sure.
trade
For
plays
sure.
out or not, since we're in one
Brian, I'm gonna
here.
keep an eye on this gold play, by the way. So
Mhm.
definitely
Yeah,
keep an
I'm
eye out for
watching it
that.
right now. But like you, if I go back in, I'll do it lightly.
Mm-hmm.
I had a positive return earlier today, so I don't want to.
Did we mentioned, Kyron, we mentioned FunderPro Labs in some of the new dashboard. Did we look at that on
Briefly.
We didn't last Friday. Yeah.
Okay, we did. Okay, I was just gonna say, yeah, there's if not, I was gonna pull it up, but yeah, we were talking about Edgeful a little bit, but yeah, FunderPro has added some cool if you weren't on the stream on Friday, added some cool features with the FunderPro Lab here. Which gives you got the asset overview, economic calendar. But what's cool about economic calendars, you can see like they dive deep into it a little bit. You know what I mean? So this can for sure help you learn fundamentals. If you're someone who wants to get more into fundamentals, it'll gives you all the economic calendar, but then it'll tell you what certain things, if they expect that to be bearish or bullish, or how much impact they expect it to have. So if you dive into low impact news, medium impact, high impact. So if you guys dive into that a little bit, that's definitely great to look into that sort of thing. And this is a trade validation tab, which provides you with some trade ideas, good for back testing, learning. So make sure you guys are utilizing that. It's a pretty cool tool that they added a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to actively look at that myself.
Abdul,
Check
hey,
it out.
listen, Abdul's trying to fade you guys, man. He said gold's going
Hey,
up.
he said it'll go up from here. If it
Well,
does, that'll be
hey,
great, because I want to see
yeah,
the gap get filled. But if it doesn't, obviously I'm not gonna fight the current volume in the market. So if volume is to the downside, volume's to the downside. But if we do see gold go up on the smaller time frame, guaranteed, we're gonna see some different time frame, some smaller time frame shift that'll indicate gold is going up. Right now, nothing has indicated gold will go up except for the fact of the area of interest that we tapped into.
yeah,
Structurally, everything right now still, all signs point to the downside. 4-hour candle closed bearish, 1-hour candle closed bearish, or is looking to push bearish. And we're coming off a lot of bearish volume in the New York session. So, in terms of you got to think, what is going to drive this up to the upside? We don't really have any news that's coming out today. Today is a bank holiday. So there's nothing fundamentally that's going to give us a huge impulsive pop to the upside is what I would kind of look at it. Coming off of all the volume, we need something to kind of force that move. And I think the area of interest that we're at is a great area where we could see some type of flip. But yeah, that smaller time frame will indicate it before we get any larger time frame move. 110%.
I think the best thing you just said was about the bank holiday.
Mm-hmm.
In
terms of like the volume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That, those things, those fundamentals matter a lot,
So I more accurately marked up my trade locker charts here. So these are like the 3 NAS or NQ levels that I have in play here. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, you can see the reactions. These, like I mentioned a bunch of times, these all come from the hourly chart, but you can see the reactions, the rejection here, currently holding here, at a rejection.
You got a viewer there. That Trader X is playing the bounce on NQ right now.
That trader. What's up, Xavier? Yeah, I'm in NQ longs right now. Yep. This is the 2-minute chart, which I like. The 2-minute chart, if we're looking at structure, right? Also, we have a big push down off the open. It tries to hold, doesn't. This dotted line down here, I put it light gray, it's really light. That is Friday's low on the NQ chart. So we got a little test underneath Friday's low, but a nice strong hold from it. And now from a structure perspective, the 2-minute chart is trying to put in a higher low. And if we can break above this 2-minute high, the 2-minute chart structure is starting to shift into an uptrend, right? So because the 2-minute chart will have now made a new low, made a high. If we can make a higher low here and create a new high here, we're starting to create higher highs. So looking to see if this 2-minute structure can continue to flip into an uptrend. And then obviously that would then lead to the 5-minute and 15-minute charts flipping back into an uptrend, but we'll see what happens.
So how will you plan on managing that trade? Like if it breaks that high right there, will you look to do anything to it, or are you just gonna,
yeah, I might. It's very possible that I would move my stop a little bit tighter here. I think this currently is like about $150 a risk that I have on with this stop. So I may move my stop a little tighter here underneath this 2-minute. Plus we have the level there. So, but I'd like to see a break above this level, break above this high right here for me to move my stop a little bit, but or even just tighten up underneath the low of the day. But yeah, I'm definitely looking to start to tighten up my stop, and depending on how big of a push we get above, I would even move it to break even. But then my first trim would come at this level here that we have around 21,173. I would take a trim there. And then I would take another piece off at the opening print and potentially hold runners to see what could happen. But yeah, so that's my game plan. That's what we're watching on NAS right now. But yeah, that Xavier, my boy Xavier, we chat on Instagram. Him and they have a group. They've been on. They did the MMA. They did the AMA, the Ask Me Anything, that we do every other week with FunderPro. Him and Skinny FX, they have a group, and they've gotten a handful of their traders in their group funded with FunderPro. So shout out to MTM, baby, MTM in the house.
No, that's tough. We're gonna have to get
I feel like you
there.
Yeah, Kyron, you're bringing all the homies in today. I like it, baby. I like it.
Yeah. Gotta get active. I'm gonna start sharing the stream more so too.
Yeah, I am too. I actually meant to. I was traveling over the weekend, and I was just thinking I was exhausted. I was hitting the snooze this morning, a little behind.
Listen, I hear that. I didn't feel good this morning. So today is and I felt bad. Today is the first day in 12 weeks that I didn't go to the gym.
Oh, no way. Well, are you gonna?
Yeah.
What's your plan? You gonna get to it
Listen, I
after
was
you're
thinking
done
about it. I
training,
was
or
thinking
just
about taking Kilo for a run. I told my girl this morning, I was like, I gotta go for a run or something. Like I can't just
get some
miss and
movement?
let it, I gotta do some type of something, whether it's go to
Yeah,
the skate park or whatever.
yeah,
I
I could
gotta
get
get
down with
active.
that. I could get down with that.
So
Yeah, we
gold
definitely
came
would have
down
to
and
get some
tested that
type of skate shoes.
2619 just now.
Yeah.
But
And then it's having like a
I
little bit
want to
of a
see
bullish
more than
reaction.
that.
I definitely like where we're at right now for gold. I definitely think this area is getting broken. So this low that we're kind of holding resistance at 2620, I definitely think we're gonna push through that. Yeah.
Xavier, this is the only position I think any of us are in right now is my NAS long. I don't think Brian or Kyron have anything on at the time. Kyron took 2 trades earlier, a winner and a loser, but he had good risk to reward, so he's up on the day.
Yeah.
How about you, Xavier? What are you watching? You in anything? Oh, I didn't even realize I have a 10-minute chart on. She looked like she wanted to give it to us, but that's not the 2-minute candle we want to see, baby. He's like, he likes the gold shorts. Okay. So we got some mix. Chat's got some mixed views on gold right now.
Yeah. I think I couldn't fade the volume for gold shorts. Like you just can't fight against that. I feel like at this very moment.
All right. I like that 5-minute push. Come on, baby.
But yeah, it looks like you're gonna get a break of your high. The 30-minute candle just closed here, Brian. If we can see like a top wick formed on this 30-minute, it's likely that we can get that previous 30-minute candle fill to break through these lows. It definitely depends on how it reacts at this area. You can see we're just struggling to close through 2620 area.
Okay. Gotcha.
Let's see. Does the 30-minute candle on your chart have a top wick?
For gold?
What on gold?
Yeah, on gold.
The current candle?
Yeah, the current 30-minute that just
I
started.
don't.
Yeah,
I don't have a
either.
top wick. The previous, I have a larger top wick.
Yeah. I would love to see it place a top wick and then fill to the downside. I think that would be nice. I just wanted to confirm that I was seeing the same thing.
Yeah. You're talking about the current 30-minute candle or this
Yeah,
one?
the current 30-minute.
Yeah.
Kind of see that pullback. And then
Yeah.
continue.
Xavier said he was in some longs earlier this morning on NQ, but got tapped out. Only play he took today. Yeah. The dump was pretty intense this morning on NAS. It was definitely one of the days that if you tried to hop in early, you could have gotten whacked for sure.
Yeah. Getting a nice reaction off of your Nas 1 hour demand zone, getting a nice little push here.
Yes, sir.
Weird
Yes, sir.
trade.
And yeah, that's a good way to put it too. Is like you said, the demand zone, right? Is I use hourly levels that are very specific to. They come from the futures chart, but they're a specific price. But yeah, when you have a group of them that are kind of near each other like this, I then treat it kind of more of like a zone. But you can see how accurate these can be sometimes.
Yeah, and I used to do the same thing, I would go personally, I would go on a larger time frame and then just set, like, areas of, I guess, support and resistance and
Mhm.
just see how it kinda respects off of those levels on a smaller time frame as well. I got a friend that actually does it more actively than I do now. Can I ask you a question, though, for your trade?
Mhm.
What was your entry candle, and what made you, what was kind of the signal that you wanted to go long
Yeah.
that candle?
So, let me look at the 5 here. So I was just watching this closely to see how he reacted, and this 5-minute engulfing bounce off the lows is what
Mhm.
gave me my entry,
Oh,
which
okay,
I
so
would consider
gotcha.
that to be aggressive entry, just because, right, we've put such a strong push down, and it's really the first 5-minute green candle that we got on the day.
Mhm.
So definitely an aggressive entry for me. But once again, I was kind of looking at the strength that we had in US 30, the strength that the larger time frames have just overall in the market right now. And so I was willing to take a more aggressive entry, thinking that we could get what, like I mentioned earlier, the V pattern, right? Where it's like, okay, everybody, the human brain, Tom Hugler talks about this a lot too, but like if you when he wrote the book Best Loser Wins, he cites
Mhm.
some stats, and the markets are currently trading at all-time highs. And you can whatever he was looking at, there's some sort of indicator that had traders bias based off of like their positions. Like over 60% of people were short biased, and the market was at all-time highs. And I think like
Mhm.
the brain just naturally like you see the market's gone up, you so like naturally you're like, oh well, it's got to come back down. It's got to have a pullback. We're gonna dump here, like right. So I think there's most likely a lot of people that are like, oh, the market's pumping. Whenever we pull back, it's gonna get super ugly. It's gonna dump, right? So there's a lot of
Mhm.
people excited to get short, and I think that this is just kind of a hunch more than it is anything.
Mhm.
But when the larger time frames are this strong, and then you get like that initial bearish push out of the gate, you get a lot of people really excited for oh, this is going to be a downtrend day, and then they just get squeezed.
Yeah,
Um,
kinda
which
like
kind
that
of creates
FOMO
what I like to call
effect.
the V pattern. And
Mhm.
so every now and then I'll try to catch a low on the V pattern, and sometimes they can turn into really nice trades. But yeah, I love that 5-minute candle we just got there. We'll see if we can get a push a little bit higher. But yeah, this 5-minute engulfing was my entry. But it had to do with all those things that I just mentioned that were going
Mhm.
on. And on the 2-minute, yeah, I would have called this a very valid entry too. Like if I were to say, hey, what would you have done that's a safer entry that's like less aggressive? I personally, you, Lido, who's in the chat with us, you guys see he calls me Yeeter because I'm definitely a more aggressive trader probably than other people in the chat. But um, if I look at this 2-minute and I go back and look at this, like to me, this would have been a really good entry because it was
Yeah,
giving us
that
a
candle.
potential of a signs of a 2-minute structure flip, and I think this is a super valid entry. And this is what I would call like a 2-minute buy. We had this little test lower, but then it breaks above this candle's high. So like I would have liked to enter above the break of this 2-minute high. So this be your entry, and I think you could
Mhm.
make this your stop.
Yeah, I
And
think
so
that
that's
that would be
how
good.
a lot of times I'll trade with like a one candle stop. But I'm gonna tighten this stop up a little bit. So under this little 2-minute swing here.
Yeah, and I think that's
So gold
exactly
broke
how I
that
would play.
2619, Kyron, but I'm not in it. I'm waiting. If it retests it and comes back, I'll do it. But I don't.
Yeah,
That's not my setup
I'm
to
with
just
you on
run
that
and
one.
chase the candle like that.
Yeah, it definitely did break through that area. So like you said, if it does retest this level, like that retest
Yeah.
level, I'm gonna look to go short as well. And
Okay.
I'm just gonna target whatever the low is that's created before the correction, if that makes sense. So if we correct
Yes.
back into that retest location, I'll look
Mhm.
to sell off of that retest location based on my candle and just target back to whatever the low is and just let that volume continue pushing us down. And realistically, it could be one of those positions where you kind of hold it for a little bit because volume has just been playing out here for so much. Maybe trim some and then hold a portion and just see where we could potentially end up for, probably end of day. Because I doubt that we'll see much of a correction on the current daily candle. The current daily candle is huge. So if anything, maybe a slight pullback, but we could potentially see a potential daily continuation tomorrow just based on how much volume we have at this current area. So I think that it could be a good whole potential position, but definitely looking to scale in here if we do get a solid correction and a continuation to the downside. Oh, I guess I can break it down
Yeah,
here.
sorry, I
No,
sorry.
you're good. You're good. You're good. I was just more so talking than anything,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
so
Yeah, I
like,
mean, it's you. I can leave mine up if you want, not a big deal. But
oh no,
Xavier,
it's
to
whatever. I can break down my charts. I love to sit here and talk to the charts. So kind of what I was mentioning
nerd
here.
out on charts.
Yeah, look, that's what I do. So I mentioned that I wanted to see a pullback up to this area here for a potential short if I was going to short, and I would have just targeted this low. And I said that if it doesn't pull back up here and we just break through this low, that I would look for a retest within this area here. For now, a continuation play to the downside. And what I meant is I would just target whatever the low is that gets created here. So whenever we start this correction, let's say gold pushes down to 26.12, let's say, and then we get a correction back up, 26.12 will be my target that I look to target on this move here. Just coming off of, you take a look at the daily time frame, we just have so much volume coming off of this current daily candle. Even though we're at this daily level of demand here, breaks through here will push us down, kind of like I mentioned, steeper. And so nothing yet on the smaller time frame has indicated that price has any sign of slowing up in the area that we're at. So just looking for that continued volume to the downside, just trading in the direction of the trend, similar to the move that I took this morning. um just looking for that volume to continue throughout the rest of the session there. So if I take this trade, since this will be, and I only generally take 1 to 2 trades a day. Technically, I took the trade last night that I lost on this morning. So, I guess this is kind of like a gray area more than 2 trades. But if I do take this trade, it'll definitely be at a scale position, or scale back my risk on this position, shall I say. But yeah, I think
Nice.
it's a great setup.
Xavier, to answer your question, you said, are you only taking entries on the 5-minute? I'll use the 2-minute, the 5-minute, the 15-minute. Any of those three for entries. Let's go, baby. This NAS position's looking good. Let's go. Give me that push.
It is.
Let's go.
I heard if you blow on it, it'll push faster. That's what I heard. Yeah. But is anybody in the chat? Anybody in the chat in an active trade? Curious.
If we get up to this 21 173, I'm gonna take a small trim.
You said your friend's name is Xavier?
Yeah, so his
Yeah.
in the chat it says that trader X, but yeah, his name's Xavier.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's tough. He said it was nice, and he said fire breakdown on gold also. If you blew on it. Yeah. Pause. For sure.
Yeah, the pause energy. That's funny.
Lito said don't be stealing his strat. That's funny.
Look
Lito,
at
we gotta talk
gold.
about your strat
What up?
more.
Ronak Rather.
But yeah, this is I like the current volume, especially for a bank holiday type of day. I like the volume that we have coming into the markets for this week. For me, that sets up a lot of potential opportunities for, throughout the week, considering that we have all these gaps that explosive push to the downside will get corrected for gold eventually. It's a matter of when and where, but that'll set up a nice, high risk to reward trade when it does in fact set up. So right now, just looking for this volume to continue. It's looking like we'll get some type of correction here. Hopefully, we start to see some type of resistance form. And however long it wants to push down, I'm down. That'll help my, risk to reward in terms of when it corrects to my area of interest. But definitely would love to get a entry in a trade on stream.
Yeah, I know. I think I'm the only one who. Well, I don't know. Did anybody take one yesterday on Friday on stream after I left?
No, Friday was really slow. So like Friday,
Yeah, it
gold was
was. It
very
was
much
slow.
at
Yeah.
that area of resistance that we were just holding up at.
Yeah.
We seen more so the volume come in with the Asian session last night. Like as soon as, I'm not gonna say as soon as it opened, but nearly as soon as it opened, we started to see that push to the downside with some volume. But Friday,
By the
no,
way,
Friday was very slow.
I don't know if I mentioned this. I moved my stop to break even on this trade.
That looks good.
So we'll see. I'd like to see us hold. Like to see us hold this level at this point now, the 21,118 area. If we can hold above there, I still like it for a move higher. SPX. Someone who watches the indexes. You guys will hear me talk about the opening print a lot. So the opening print is whatever price the market opens at New York session at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. So for SPX, let's make sure we got our 9:30 candle. So I always mark my opening prints with yellow. And you can see why I like to use the opening print as a level. SPX with the rejection of the opening print, pretty harsh. 5-minute engulfing bar, outside bar. Don't love to see that.
Oh, XPX. I couldn't see what chart you were looking at there.
Yeah, SPXR, yeah.
No,
Yeah,
you're good. You're good.
US 30 is holding structure pretty good. We'll see what she can continue to do. So the NAS position here, I mentioned. Oh, did I go to NAS? I clicked on the wrong thing. So the NAS trade we're in here, we came back down, test this level again here. If the 2-minute can hold, this 2-minute kind of holds and gives us a hammer close like that. A break above that 2-minute high would present us with another 2-minute buy setup. And we were talking about earlier the 2-minute structure shifting, right? So we had this push down, we came up, made a high, put in a higher low, and now we put in a higher high. So if we can put in another higher low here, I would love to see if that will then lead us up to another new high here. But we'll see if the structure stays clean and continues to give us give me, I guess, what I'm looking for. But yeah, I mean, a 2-minute buy trigger there could give you an entry with a stop underneath this low. But we'll see how this 2-minute pans out here. This close is right there. All right, yeah. So it didn't trigger above yet, but yeah, it just did. So I would consider this a valid 2-minute entry if you wanted to take it. But I'll summary in. I'm not going to take it. But
hey, off the subject, did y'all hear about those monkeys that escaped from that, or that were on the run?
I did
South
hear
Carolina.
Oh, I didn't hear nothing about escaped monkeys.
Yeah, the monkeys that I don't know if they're still remain on the run, but I think that was in South Carolina. Like they escaped from a lab.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh boy.
So what do you think we'll call the next pandemic?
I was just gonna say, if the news hasn't been crazy enough recently, we needed some crazy monkeys running around. That's what we needed.
Yeah. If anybody in the chat knows what happened to the monkeys, I guess I could Google it and see.
That's interesting. I don't stay too up to date on the news as much.
Looks like they recovered half of them. Well, no, I don't know. It says they had 24 more monkeys that escaped the lab and recovered. One monkey was recovered safely. Only one?
Oh wow. That trader X, you said gold. I didn't mean to cut you off. You said gold could potentially be offering that entry soon. Looks like it's starting to give that small retracement. It is, and it's starting to get that bearish volume just not quite tapped into my level though that I wanted to see this reaction off of. I would much rather the reaction off of here, but you can see that the 15-minute candle closed bearish and it's just filling that 15-minute candle wick almost immediately in terms of the volume for that continuation down. But since it didn't reach my area of interest, I can't actively take this trade specifically because I've done this a lot of times where I'll take a trade, let's say right here, without tapping into my area of interest, and I'll set my stops above here, and it'll literally get blown through, tap into my area of interest, and then go back to the downside. That's why I'm okay to allow trades like this one up here. I said if it doesn't come up here, I'll just let it go, and I'll look for a re-entry if it breaks through the bottom. I likely if this, pushes through the bottom without me, within this current, I would maybe look for one more possible sell when this 1 hour candle closes, because this 1 hour candle is closing with a wick that can likely get filled to the downside. Something I would want to see would be something similar of this in terms of the candle price action. So I draw it out here. Let's change this to a white candle. Make it like
I'm going to use
that.
the monkey theory. Every time they catch a monkey, I'm going to go short on gold. If one gets away, I'm going to go long.
One lot for every lab monkey.
So yeah, I want to see I want to see some type of move like this. So in this next, at the very least, in this next 1 hour candle for a potential correction, and I would want to see the correction back up into my zone, and then that's where I would look to potentially go short for this fill to the downside. It's likely that we would see potentially a bearish candle close from the next 1 hour, but all I would look to target is the previous 1 hour low to just get filled. But if we,
bearish
like I said, if
candle
it
in the
doesn't
1
pull
hour.
up there, then it is what it is.
Okay.
No,
Something I
for
like
me,
to,
I mean, coming off of a bullish day, I'm not trying to force anything.
I don't like the previous 15-minute close. So is the 15-minute chart on that. I don't like that upper wick, but so far I like the reaction off the level. So I haven't made any adjustments. I'm still in stop at break even.
Does anybody know if you can set alerts on Trade Locker?
Good question.
That would
I
be
don't
a
think you can
nice
yet.
feature. You don't think you can? Oh, okay, yeah. I don't think I can see it anywhere here too. I generally like to, so that I'm not actively looking at the charts all the time, I'll generally set an alert at my area of interest. And just like a tip that I would say for people who may have like missed trades, I used to miss a lot of trades. And so just setting alerts at area of interest and, letting it go and waiting for the alerts to go off to look for my potential, trades, I think has been beneficial to me because you don't have to spend as much active time watching the charts. And then, like for instance, those early entries that I would used to take, they're no more if I literally wait until my alert goes off to look into
Yeah.
the charts. I already know that we're already at an area of
Yeah.
interest. He said, not sure. I just use TradingView for alerts. Yeah, that's what I do too.
Yeah. If you're someone who struggles with over trading or just boredom trading or anything like that, I think setting alerts and then not even, watching the charts, just like Kyron said, I think that's a great way to fix some of those issues. Because the longer you sit there and stare at the chart, the more you're going to have to take a trade. I mean, there's just no other way to explain that. It's just when you're sitting here and you're watching the candles go, the longer you do it, the more you want to put on a little bit of risk and just see. But
Yeah.
I think setting alerts is a great way to manage your trades and not over trade and let you know when to start looking for a trade. So Trade Locker gang, we love you. We love Trade Locker. That's our request. Kyron needs alerts. I have a request, and that is the if we could get, it'd be awesome to have like the sessions be able to highlighted. So I would love it if there was like a feature where it would show the New York session as like a black background, and then the Asian London sessions are just like a gray, lighter gray background. just for some reason, I don't know why, my brain, for whatever reason, that just helps me visualize the chart better. Like, okay, New York session, and then this is like after. I consider everything else to be like after hours, right?
Yeah, I got you.
So if anybody from the Trade Locker tech team is watching, the stream team has a couple requests for you guys.
I tried to look through the indicators here to see if they had any anything like that you could like add onto your screen. I know
Oh
you
yeah,
can with
yeah.
Trader View.
I haven't tried to look at that.
I don't think I seen anything that was indicative of something similar to
Yeah.
what you were mentioning though.
Let's see if I do the session.
That does that for your risk.
What do you say?
Yeah, so we just seen this bottom get broken here for gold. So I have one plausible more or one entry more that I'll look for today's session, and if not, then I'll let this continue to run to the downside, and I'll look to trade it during Asian session. Because this 1 hour candle is literally, it just filled the wick that we had available in terms of filling to the downside, and it just created a new low on the 1 minute time frame, rejecting off of that area there, but it did create and price in a new low. Not sure for yeah. So what's everybody's favorite asset to trade? Mine would have to be gold. I think just the volume on gold, the price action. I've seen it to just be my most profitable, pair to look at, or I guess you can call it a pair. But yeah,
I'm
I
curious to
just
see what everyone says here. I know Xavier and Skinny, they trade a little bit of everything. I know I don't know about Xavier, but Skinny definitely, he trades like Forex pairs, he trades gold, he watches everything, which I think is having I agree with like a lot of people will preach, or a lot of trade influencers or people who are teaching how to trade with preach to study one ticker and learn that ticker and learn its price action, learn how it moves. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I also think knowledge is power, and the more you know about the market as a whole, the better off you'll be. So I think it's interesting.
yeah, and me personally,
Karen asked if I see NAS pushing higher than my TP. I think it's possible. I think we're in a crazy bull run, so I think anything could happen. But my expectations are a little low for much higher. I could see us. I wouldn't be surprised if we go and take like the pre-market highs, right? So we have. I minimized my screen. Like we have these pre-market highs up here. Like I think that would be a good target. And could we push higher? Sure. Yeah. I mean, of course we could. But we'll see. Also, now that I know that, I never thought you could hold positions overnight without a swing account. But we found out on the first stream you can hold positions overnight, just not over the weekend. So if NAS continues to stay bullish and like we flip and we get back up above the opening print and we close green on the day, and I still have a runner, like if all of that happens to pan out, I may even keep a position on overnight and just see what this week brings us.
Wizard TP said MYM and US 30. What is MYM?
So MYM is basically just US 30. It's just the futures version. So
okay.
When you're looking at futures, so SPX will be ES, NAS will be NQ, US 30 will be YM. But then there's two different contract sizes for each. So if you're trading YM, it moves $5 per point. So for every one contract, it's moving $5 per point on YM. And then there's micro contracts, which are 1/10 the size of a mini contract. So regular YM contract is a mini contract, and it's $5 per point. MYM is a micro contract, and it moves 50 cents per point.
Got you.
And yeah, we were talking about this in the chat a little bit, yeah. So NQ is the same thing. So there's an MNQ, there's an MES, and NQ is $20 per point. So MNQ is $2 per point. ES is $5 per point. Oh, I'm sorry, ES is $50 per point. MES is $5 per point.
Got you.
So yeah, but I would say my favorite thing to trade, my most traded thing is MNQ. So I'll trade the micros on MNQ. So $2 a point.
Okay. Abdul says he likes to trade gold, but he says, as much as I love trading gold, it always betrays me. I don't know how many times it has blown my account, yet I keep trading it. So
Just like Iron's X.
so I would say that, well, for one, gold is not what's blowing your account. Your risk management is what's blowing your account.
That's a good point.
Um
Gold says,
but
you
I
again.
get that. There's, it does have high volume moves, and so I would say managing your risk definitely on gold is like we talked about it. Managing your risk, it doesn't matter what asset you trade. If you don't manage your risk, you could blow your account with any particular move in the markets, So I would definitely do that. But I love gold. I found that gold has some of the cleanest price action in terms of the overall time frame market structure. I like it better than, like some pairs like EUR USD or any for real, any currency pair, unless it's like a JPY. But I don't even, about 6 or 7 months ago, I stopped trading everything except for gold and EUR USD. And kind of to talk about what you had mentioned, Tyler, about how some trade influencers, they just promote only like focusing on one or two charts or whatever. I think it solely comes down to like what time frame you trade. Because if you trade larger time frames, then you're going to need to look at different assets because, they don't move as fast. So getting your area of interest may take way longer. So I know personally, when I would trade the 4-hour time frame, just when I first started, I would look at every single USD pair. Now, well, not every USD major, and then 3 JPY pairs, which would be AUD JPY, GBP JPY, and USD JPY, along with gold. And I would trade based off of which one was at, whatever my area of interest is for each chart. I found it more difficult to do that though, once I transitioned to trading smaller time frames, because now there's so many different opportunities. The analogy that I kind of mentioned was like, it's like going to an arcade with only one token and having to decide which game you're going to play. That kind of pressure of, I only have this one or two trades that I can take, but there's, 30 opportunities. Which one is the best one? And so I kind of took out that, and I only decided to focus on gold and EU simply because I seen that I had the highest profit on these two pairs. But what I didn't know is that it would make trading so much more easier for me, because, I would have to hop on and go through 26 markets every single day, to look at what my potential trade is, and then decipher between 2 or 3 which one has the best price action. And then a lot of times I would end up picking the wrong one, and that would irritate me as well. So just focusing on the pairs that I had the best win rate on, and just dialing in on my strategy has been so helpful for me. I just feel like it's taken a lot of stress off of my plate. Brian, you kind of mentioned it last week. Like, if you only focus on 1 or 2 pairs, you kind of know where price is at, at all times. I don't have to, actively watch it. I kind of get where we're at in terms of structure, and it's not something I have to too much think about. So it's taken a lot of pressure off of me, and I've actually seen my win rate and my profitability increase because of it, I would say.
Yeah, I don't even, and I don't necessarily think that traders should trade everything, because I mean, I'll dabble in like a little bit of everything, but I think being just knowledge of the financial markets as a whole. So like whether it's, gold, whether it's stocks, whether it's Forex, whatever, I think the more you know about everything, because all of these things sort of correlate and tie together and stuff. Like I talked about last week how I took NQ trades based off of big tech earnings reports, right? So like I'm not putting risk on for Tesla's earnings, or I'm not putting risk on for Meta's earnings, or I'm not putting risk on for Apple's earnings, but I'm still watching them. I'm aware of what's happening in those situations. and then I'm letting that kind of affect or influence my bias for my trades on NQ, which is the asset that I typically trade, right? So
Gotcha.
more than anything, I agree with you. You can like overwhelm yourself by trying to trade everything, and I don't know if that's necessarily what traders should do, but I just think I think knowledge, like I said earlier, I think knowledge is power, and I think the more you can just educate yourself about the markets, the better off and more informed you'll be as a trader.
Yeah, I think I've seen a lot of growth from looking at all those different charts because, you
Mm-hmm.
get to watch the price action from all the different charts and you get to see how candles move and, you know, identifying higher time frame analysis and how it correlates with shorter time frame. You get more data, I guess you can say. And I think it was the one of the biggest things in terms of like screen time when I was first starting out to be able to go through all these different assets, mark them up and, and watch how they play out. I'd never actually traded, like I said, all of them. I would generally pick one or two to focus
Mm-hmm.
on, one or
Mm-hmm.
two, maybe even three to focus on in a week. But I would look just in total at more assets than I do now.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's just more so to finding out what you're comfortable with. Like I think I find that I'm more comfortable trading, gold and executing. And like I said, I've had a higher win rate on gold, but it was also kind of biased because it was my highest traded asset. So not only do I have a higher win rate on gold than all of my other assets, but I also I traded at a higher volume. So I was just like, why? I looked at how much money I could have saved if I only focused on EU and gold. That's
Mm-hmm.
literally what it was.
Yeah,
I'm like,
no,
man, I
I
lost
think
over.
that's so true. And yeah, Xavier said that too. Actually tracking the data, seeing what pairs are currently giving you the higher win percentage is important. Totally agree. I think tracking your data and making those types of adjustments like you did is, I mean, you're at that you're treating trading like a business, and that's what you got to do, right? You got to track your data. You got to then take the data that you've tracked and implement changes to your trading to then improve it. And that's what you just do that over and over and over and over and over again, and that's how you can really improve your trading. But without tracking your data, you'll never know.
You'll never know. Let's see here.
I'd love to see a 5-minute failed sell setup here. So this is what kind of this sort of 5-minute sell setup here where we failed to go higher, triggered lower. I would like to see this fail here, but we'll see.
Let's see if I can't find a larger time frame target. We don't have much of a gap to fill on this current 1 hour candle as much as I would have liked, but I think that we could see likely a plausible push back into this area here. That would be an area of resistance just coming off of how much volume. I would have loved to see this if this closed like up here and then we get this wick fill to the downside. Um
Mm-hmm.
I don't really necessarily love this, especially since we haven't gotten yet. Is this Trade Locker does this occasionally where it'll have like this gap on one of the time frames where it just doesn't actively register the candle here. So you can't really see the 15-minute candle as much. You can kind of see here the correction that we had on the smaller time frame. Really just this being the top wick. I think this, or let's mark out the previous 1 hour high. It had a lot of volume in the previous 1 hour. So yeah, that's way too high. Let's go to the 15-minute time frame. So the previous 15-minute high being here, we got sort of a retest and a continuation, but I would love much better than, scaling in onto this and then targeting these daily lows, which we could start to see price slow up in this area. I think more so now I'm more inclined to, let's say, a 15-minute correction, a 15-minute time frame correction, then scalping this smaller time frame. Just because it's just running down here with kind of without me, and I don't really have the cleanest market structure here in terms of where I can look for some resistance within this area for a continuation down. It's just not cleanly identified for me just with this current smaller time frame price action. I think I'll be more so hands off until
Yeah,
maybe we start to get some larger time
melting.
frame
Yeah,
rejection.
it's melting. What's let me check on Bitcoin. See what Bitcoin did today.
Bitcoin is at 84,000. It was just at 81 last
No
night. So
way.
Bitcoin is
Oh,
ripping.
I wanted. Oh man, I should have. I said I should have traded it today. Oh, that's
You
fun.
did.
Wow,
Bitcoin ripping
ripping.
to the upside. We can see here, and I mean, and it's at all-time high. So like, you can't really call this top of when it's gonna. I mean, yeah, we can look to target like solid numbers, but in terms of like where we're at, we have no previous past data of ever reaching these heights here. So kind of like how with gold, these is the times that I would just be targeting structure just on the smaller time frame. Let's take a look here on the 5-minute time frame, see if we can see what the structure has been. It's just been bullish throughout this whole time. We got one break of a high here, a correction following
Mhm.
this break of a high, and then just been bullish since. We got our
Yeah.
first resistance level of resistance here at like 84. So
Mhm.
I want to say about 84, it would be likely where and why this was just a solid whole number. We pushed through that level, came back, and we kind of consolidated around this area. I think people just like to target these solid whole numbers because they're easy areas. Why would we target 8.5,
Mhm.
167? Nobody can, what I mean? If that does that make sense in terms of
Yeah.
targeting like whole numbers? So we got our
Yeah.
first level of rejection at 8,400 here, and we're just, it's just continuing to create higher highs and higher lows on this smaller time frame. It's just so much volume. Uh, Nothing really
That's super
there for
interesting.
me until it forms some type of correction. But I don't, like I said, I don't trade crypto. I hold crypto, so long term. But
Oh,
yeah.
you're
So
still happy camper.
huh? Say again?
I know my dad is kicking himself right now. He asked me, Bitcoin had a big pullback. Like this is at least 6 months ago, I think.
Yeah, it did. It did. Um,
And he asked me what I thought, and I was like, "Dad, load up. I'm telling you, load up." And I think it was like a day or two later, it was up like $15,000 from where I told him to load up. And I was like, "Did you get any?" And he's like, "No." And I'm like, "You gotta be kidding me." Ugh.
yeah, you figure it's up almost 30,000 since the beginning of September. You coming down here to these
Yeah,
September
right
lows.
around there is where I think I told him, I was like, "Listen," it actually might even been it might even have been before we got to that channel. I can't remember exactly. I'd have to look, but
Yeah, the channel started, I want
I
to say,
want
in
to answer
March.
Sarki's question, which they said, in your trading journey, what has been your biggest turning point that shifted your mindset or strategy from struggling to consistent profitability? Can you share what triggered this transformation and how others might learn from it? For me,
Great
it was
question.
after I think it was the third time I was going through the Best Loser Wins audiobook, and I remember it like it was just, I was like driving my car and it just like clicked. I had this like flashback of like every trading day that I ever had, that like after I was done trading, I like looked at my wife and I like showed her the chart and I was like, if I would have just held, if I just held. And it like this like it was like at that point in time, what he was saying in the book and that like clicked, and I was like, oh my, and it just changed my mindset. I shifted on how I think about um holding my positions and adding to my positions. This was something I talked about earlier when we said about, I think trade management is more important. Is and it's not something I've done a ton on the stream, but I do it a lot when I'm trading futures. Is I will add to my winning trades, which makes your average price, entry price worse, right? But
Hmm.
when you do it correctly, you're able to then have a big position size, and then I'll adjust my stop, obviously, right, to manage my risk. So you're able to put on a big position size if the market's working in your favor without actually risking a large amount to your account. The risk just becomes on your unrealized gains, and
Hmm.
it's very much a balancing act because you can obviously add to your risk pretty quickly by doing it, but that changed my trading immensely for me, and trying to do like the opposite of what normal thinking is, and there's kind of
True.
that whole thing was definitely the big turning point for me, and just how I manage my trades, and I was able to start making a lot more money that way.
Um, yeah, Brian, what
Yeah.
do you feel like is something that was been a big turning point in your life? And then I'll kind of touch on what I think was, you know, something that was pivotal, shall I say, in my my trading journey as well.
Yeah. In the trading journey, I would, the thing that stands out most for me is the time I began learning that the market doesn't care what you're thinking. And that sounds like such an obvious thing when you say it out loud like that. But, you have to, how many people, say, I'm going to put my trade in right here. I hope it goes this way, or I think it'll do this, rather than have a set of rules that are reaction based. So you say, the market just did this. This is how I react to that. There was a time when I did a lot of, I think it's going to do this. I think in the English language, we tend to use that. I think we speak that in slang sometimes. We'll say, hey, I think the market's about to turn right here, right? But for us, it's based on sets of rules, right?
Mm-hmm.
But until you have those sets of rules, there was a part of me that actually would, and I can't explain it any better than that. And it demonstrated to me that my rules were not thoroughly written yet.
Mm.
And when I started realizing that, then that's made me come upon, how detailed do you want your rules to be for your trade management? And I don't know about you guys, but I seem to always be adding to my rules. I might, add little footnotes here and there, notating what date something happened. I sort of like to know, percent chances. I don't do the calculations, but I like to look at those notes as rules. So that's what I would say. I turned when I realized I need to react to the market and not try to predict the market.
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing. That was something that would, for me, I would be stuck on a directional bias to the point where I would be technically blinded to what the charts is showing me.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
that's a very
I
good
think
point.
that's huge. And to be able to one of the things that was hard for me was to be able to switch my bias, just to I could see it technically and I know, but I just would be so emotionally attached to a position or a direction that my eyes I was reacting obviously emotionally. And I think that one thing that helped is definitely having a set of rules. But when you're starting, you definitely don't know what rules to set and or have in place. I think
Mhm.
what's important, like you said, is that your journal is always evolving. You're always adding to it. That's kind of how it was. So I had a set rule base as well. I actually have my rules typed out. It's called the For the Culture FX strategy, and it's literally a
Okay.
step by step how to enter the week by looking at all the news events that we got for the week, expecting volume, identifying the larger time frame trend, trading only in my session, things like that that are implemented into my rules. But I can say that my rules have changed a lot over the years. And one thing that I would say was the biggest, I would say, pivotal moment was my journal. Because with my journal, I was able to identify what I was doing wrong and what I was doing right and how to emphasize the trades that I was doing right. I think actually starting For the Culture FX has been one of the biggest things because I would take a screenshot of every single trade and every single setup, and I send that out.
Mhm.
And from sending it out, you have to defend why you got in a trade. Like, I
Mhm.
always feel that I need to be able to definitively defend why I'm taking a trade. Otherwise, it doesn't, it's outside of my risk. It doesn't, you know what I mean? So just having
Yes.
those screenshots and going back through them and having the journal realistically. And I have uh a online, like free journal that I utilize, and being able
Oh,
to
okay.
just go back to each individual moment of, I could go back to 2020 March 3rd and look at the trade that I took and see how it is. And I can just go through that data. With having all that data, I learned that I needed to stop focusing on so many different pairs. I learned different things that I was doing wrong in my own strategy when on the execution side of things. I had a solid strategy that works with a solid win rate and solid, risk to reward, but how often can you execute that discipline throughout the week? And how many trades do you take outside of that? I would find that, I would
Mhm.
take so many trades early on in the week outside of my plan to where I would be fearful to enter on a position when it was actually a setup that
Good.
abided by my plan because I'd
And
already
you're digging
lost so
yourself
much.
out of a hole too.
Yeah, you know, so
Mhm.
just being able to have that type of data, and it doesn't have to be something crazy, just, mark out, gold by like I said, I made a whole template just so that I could have this, but just marking out, I took a gold buy on March the 2nd. Why did I take the buy? It was because X, Y, and Z happened. And that gives you a little bit more confidence in taking your trades as well. Being able to say this is exactly why I took this trade. Because like you said, a lot of people get into trades and they say, I hope this happens, or I really wish that this happens. And just being able to have, those kind of having a strategy and then executing that strategy and having a journal and being able to just kind of document those trades. Just how do you know if you're getting better if you don't document, all your trades? A lot of times I'll take like losing trades, they're hard to document and then you just forget about them. And you try to sweep it under the rug and let's go to the next one. But learning from those L's is what'll help you to be more, I guess, in my personal opinion, more profitable.
Yeah.
That's good. It's two good explanations. I agree. So we come up on 2 hours here. Before we hop off, though, Xavier asked me to explain scaling into trades. So this is something I'm hoping to be able to do on the stream more as we go. And it's obviously like it's a riskier way of trading, but when you do it right, I think it is you really are just adding the risk to your unrealized profits and not your actual account balance. And so, for example, had I done that today, had I like scaled into this trade, now one thing to consider when you're trading forex, and if I were to add to this trade right now, it would open a completely separate position and it would show on the screen that way. And not that there's really necessarily a big difference than when you do it on futures, but when you're trading futures and you take a position, so if I take a long on MNQ, it's going to show me like this line, like my entry point, right? Where I entered on this first trade. So we entered on this engulfing candle. We get a little bit of consolidation, this nice push up, and then a pullback back to a level here. So what I would do is then take another entry here. So for example, a lot of times I'll trade like 2 to 6 micros on MNQ. And so those move at $2 per point. So I'm looking at anywhere from $4 to $12 per point once I'm like fully scaled into the trade. And what I will do, depending on the size of the stop and everything like that, my initial entry will be 2 to 4 micros. So for instance, say I entered here with 4 micros. We got this push up. We got this push back. Okay, we're pushing back into a level I have here on a pullback. I think this level could hold. I'm going to add 2 more micros to this. And on futures, what it'll do is it'll automatically just adjust your average price. So like this line will just like move up a little bit to where my new average entry, like my average entry price is. And from there, say, my original stop was down here. Okay, that moved up. So maybe I'll move my stop a little bit underneath this swing low here. Or sometimes I'll even move it to break even. And it's definitely a balance. It's not black and white. There are times where, say, I took this entry with 4 micros, we get this push up, I might sell 2. We get this pull back, I might add those 2 that I just sold back on. And once again, it'll change your average entry price. But I don't necessarily care about that. If I think the chart's going to go higher, I just have more size now as the chart goes higher. And it's very different, in my opinion, than the typical style of trading, and I think that's what's good about it. But you also have to be really careful because it can like go bad quickly. So it's if it's something that you want to try as a trader, adding to your winners, I definitely suggest it, but start small. In the book, he explains that he adds, like, if say his initial entry is 10 contracts, when he adds another 10. But you don't have to do that, right? Say your initial entry is 5 contracts. Try adding 2 on a pullback, right? So you're just adding a little bit more. But like once you do it a couple of times, you start to be like, oh, okay, like I can see how this would work. but yeah, so it's definitely different, and it's definitely something I like to do on futures more because I like mentally when I see it just like change my average price as opposed to open a new position. I like that a little bit more. So I hope that explains your question. Like I said, I want to do it more on stream so people can see it more. I've wanted to record myself trading doing it because it's like one of those things that like I think it's better to see it live. It's kind of hard to explain, I guess, but yeah, it's something I've been doing for a while now, but
I do it every trade.
Yeah,
you add to your winners?
I'll scale in all the time. I always know where my stop loss is,
Mm.
and as long as my entry point as long as price hasn't surpassed my entry point and I missed it, that means it's backing up, right? So I'll just keep. I'll add a little bit. Now I have a limit, in my mind.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go past a certain amount. But they keep the same stop loss, So I mean, it could be a fraction from my stop loss that I know where it's at. I'll still put another order in right there. It just means each time I'm putting in an order, I'm scaling backwards. So it's the stop loss is getting tighter and tighter and tighter. I'm fine with that.
Yeah. So I do that sometimes. Like I would call that like scaling into a position where it's like, okay, I'm going to take a little bit of an early aggressive entry, but I'm going to take it with like a much smaller position size than I'm comfortable with. Kind of like build up position and that's kind of like what we talked about before, the accumulation, right? So I'll kind of accumulate like, okay, I'll take one contract and another, and I'll do that. But I think what I'm talking about more is like adding to my winners. Like I'll be up 60, 80 points on an NQ trade and like it'll get a little pullback and I'll add to it again because I think it can go another 40 points or something like that. Like I'll be up significantly on a trade and I'll still be adding to it.
And you might have a difference, right? You might do that differently. Funded versus demo, funded versus a challenge. Like what you just described, I'll do that in a challenge.
Yeah.
I
definitely
because I want to speed it up. I don't want to sit in a challenge for 6 months.
Yeah, I agree. I have that mindset too, where I'm like, okay, I definitely size up a little bit more. I don't think you should just like go in guns a blazing and just like blow accounts left and right. But like, I agree. Once you have like the experience, I definitely trade them a little bit more aggressively for sure.
Yeah, and I like how I kind of scale in how you scale in, Tyler, with the difference being that after I take my scale in, for one, I always take it at half the risk of my initial position. So let's say I take it at a 1% risk on my first trade, my scale in trade will come after, let's say I'm looking for a sell, price creating lower lows and lower highs. We just got a new low created. We pull back to an area of interest, kind of like what gold today was doing. Didn't quite come to my area of interest, but once we get that candle confirmation on a smaller time frame, I'll scale in with whatever that candle is being my stop loss, but at a 0.5% risk. The only difference is that I'll now move my original stop to break even, so that the amount of risk that I actually have on the table is only 0.5% that I'm actually going to lose at the worst case scenario. And then that way I can, 0.5 sometimes, because sometimes even those scaling entries, because they're on a smaller time frame, to my larger time frame target. Now, I don't, after my target is hit, I generally don't scale in again unless, price is just moving with volume. But like towards my target, dialing it down to the smaller time frame and scaling in, a lot of times those offer a better risk to reward for me. And so it helps me almost not 2 times what I'm doing, but it definitely is been more profitable, but it just comes with everything has its drawbacks. So, if you do lose, you'll end up losing that additional scaling position. That's why I like to break my trade back to my initial trade back to break even and just have that. To me, it's like the best of both worlds. I get the maximum profits, and if I lose, I only lose 0.5%, but I have the buying power of 1.5%, which I generally like. I'm not as good with scaling in though. I'm not gonna lie, as I should
I
be.
would give an example too. Like if you, and this is like hypothetical. I didn't like actually take this trade or anything, but what he talks about in the book and kind of what I aim for too is like I want to be in the market on trending days, right? And not only do I want to be in the market on trending days, I want to be in the market with bigger size on winning trending days than when I'm taking a stop. So like for example, something like this, if you think about it, if you took a good entry, and this is all, like I said, hypothetical. If you took a good entry, you know, down here on the NASDAQ, and you were able to hold it all the way up here, so you're you're 150 points in profit. I'm not even looking, but for example, you're 150 points in profit. You're still having some runners. Maybe you've taken like a couple of trims, but you still have, say you have 5 contracts on, something like that. And you get this pullback here. If you think about it, if you do another buy here, another 5 contracts, sometimes even more, like your original entry is so far away that like your average price will only come to somewhere like here, right? So like you can then get on pretty darn good size and still have your profit or your stop loss in decent profit. Like, and then you can, and so obviously it's not always going to work. Sometimes you're going to do that ad and it's going to come back and you end up giving back a lot of your unrealized profits. That's the difficult part of trading that way. That's why he calls the book Best Loser Wins. Because if you get really good at losing and like that doesn't bother you, it's like, okay, well then when it works, like you'll make, you can make your salary in a couple of days of trading, right? It's sort of his mindset. And I've had to curb this a little bit because I get a little crazy with it sometimes. Like I went on a hot streak in last November where I was doing it and it worked like super well. I made like 23 grand in like 2 weeks. But then like when the market decided it was time to stop trending, I was still trying to force it and I gave that money back pretty quickly. Like so it's, you know what I mean? It's one of those things that you really have to like know like when when to balance them. So I still do it, I still add to them, but I started to like shoot for like smaller profit targets and not get like try to force a daily trend like every day and scale that in a little bit. And that's been good, but hopefully that's a good explanation of kind of just like the mindset or the thinking behind it. But I'd suggest that book to every trader, even if you don't want to add to your winners. I think it's still a good book for your mindset when it comes to just holding your winners.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely gonna have to check it out, especially after we hop off of this stream, because I'm gonna, get to editing more content, updating the groups and whatnot. And when I sit here and I'm working, I generally like to listen to something. Whether it be I'm weird. I feel like I'm an old head at sometimes because I like to listen to smooth jazz and things like that while I'm working because it just sets like a mood and a vibe and just my environment. I'll put on maybe a little anime or something and just, rock out like that. But Sarky says, thank you for sharing your powerful stories and insights. Hearing about the things that transform your trading journey is incredibly inspiring. Your experience to offer valuable lessons for everyone aiming to achieve consistency in this challenging yet rewarding field. Truly appreciate your openness and the wisdom you shared today. We appreciate you too, man. I hope that you were able to, like you said, get some value from this and everybody be able to take something from it. We don't do a lot of, I haven't had a lot of active trades on these lives because it's just all about timing in the markets. But I hope that in the future we'll be able to take more trades. You're able to see, how we actually execute on trades, emotions while being in trades, while being, in profit, while being in drawdown, how we manage it. I think that all of that is invaluable. But just being able to come here, ask your questions, and learn something. I think that everybody, like my goal is always to just learn and grow with my community and then with this community as well, that we all learn and grow together. That's the beauty of this. I think just even myself, I've gotten value from being on these streams as well, talking with the group and things of that nature. So just surrounding yourself about those like-minded individuals. And we appreciate you for tuning into the stream and to being active, and we look to seeing you more and more in the future, man.
Well said, Kyron. Also, thank you for the kind words with the comment. I was just ranting about adding, so I was like, you know what, I gotta do it. We're holding my level. I guess I gotta send it out.
Yeah, no,
I couldn't just sit here and rant about it for 20 minutes and not do it, right? But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. It's been fun. It's been, I think, probably a unique and different experience for us. I know it's like a little weird when you're, trading in front of people and it feels, trading can feel personal and it's just weird sometimes. But the goal is really to help you guys, with experience, get smarter or get, improve your trading. We're here to improve your trading and help with your knowledge. So any questions you guys have, keep firing them over, and we will do our best to answer them. But I think for today, that pretty much will wrap us up. Unless anybody has any final thoughts or any final questions. And we will be back on Wednesday, 9:15 Eastern time. Anybody got any closing thoughts? Any final words?
I think Wednesday we have Cameron coming on. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it'll be
I'd have
Sam
to
and
look at the
Cameron on
schedule. I'm
Wednesday.
not 100% sure, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it'll be Sam and Cameron on Wednesday. Or it
Okay,
should
great.
All
be
right,
Chuck.
sounds good.
Yeah, folks haven't met Cameron yet, so tune into that.
You haven't met the Fish Man. The Fish Man has been on a hot streak in the chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
So
what,
we
the
got
past
the
2 weeks?
Fish Man and the Eater.
So Wednesday. Yeah. Be a good lineup.
All right, gang. Well, trade safe. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you guys again soon. Hope everybody enjoys the rest of your day.
Thanks, guys.
Peace out.